Hello and welcome back to the channel. Happy Sunday to all y'all. We're gonna cook up a little light lunch. Just working with some of the things I have around the house. We got some fresh broccolini, some fresh green beans, shallot, white onion, carrots, chopped up some garlic, some portobello mushroom, and a mix of squash and zucchini, and some fresh shrimp peeled and deveined in the back. And we're gonna go ahead and whip up a nice little butter white wine sauce, little light lunch for a hot day during the summer. Hope y'all enjoy. Alright, let's get to the stove. Alright, so I have a little mixture of butter and olive oil in my preheated cast iron pan. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our things in that take the longest to cook down. So I'm going to go ahead and throw my carrots in first. Going to get those to cook down a little bit where they soften up. And I am a fan of putting my mushrooms in early with my garlic, so that way they all cook down. I'm not a big fan of chomping into a raw piece of garlic personally. And also going to go ahead and add our mix of onions and shallots into the pan. And you just want to have enough butter in there to give it a nice little coating. If the original amount you put in there isn't enough, don't be afraid to add some. So we're just going to go ahead and get these mixed in. I'm going to go ahead and raise the heat up a little bit. Probably cook these down for anywhere between 5 and 7 minutes or so before we go ahead on to our next step, which would be to add our green beans and zucchini in. So just go ahead and let that cook down. Alright, one of the things I'm doing just off camera in this pot in the back is it's called blanching my green beans, the fresh green beans. So I've got a pot of boiling water that I'm going to cook my pasta in. But what I'm doing is I'm cooking my green beans in that boiling water for about 3 minutes. It just kind of speeds up the cooking process in the skillet. We have our first set that we dropped into a nice consistency. We're going to go ahead and drop our zucchini and squash in right now. And I'm also going to go ahead and grab my green beans out real quick. And we're going to go ahead and mix all those in. Probably going to have to wind up adding a little bit more butter to the pan, just because it kind of cooks down and gets absorbed up by some of the other stuff. But remember, don't add a ton of butter, because once it's in the pan, it's kind of hard to take it back out. So small portions steadily as cooking, so that way it's not overly saturated, because we are just making a light butter sauce for our pasta. And you might have a little residual water on your green beans. Not really a big deal. It will cook off inside the pan. There we go. And now we're just going to get all this nice little mix. And we're just going to let that go. I'm probably going to let that cook for probably another 5 to 10 minutes. And I went ahead and cranked up the heat on my water in the back, because I'm going to go ahead and drop my pasta. We're going to choose to use a brown rice pasta, but go ahead and use whatever you want. Spaghetti, linguine, something, some sort of long noodle is probably going to work best with this type of dish. Okay, it's been going for about 2 minutes or so. Got everything mixed in really well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and throw a cover on it. I'm going to kind of steam the vegetables a little bit, kind of speed up the cooking process. So we're going to let that go for another 3 to 5 minutes. Some of you are probably wondering right now, well, he hasn't really put any seasoning on the food yet. Well, some people think the star of this dish is the shrimp, but in my opinion, the star of this dish is actually going to be our fresh vegetables. So I don't want to take much flavor away from that. I don't want to be overbearing with salt or cayenne or paprika or any of these traditional, or lemon pepper, any of these traditional seasonings you see in a shrimp pasta. I really want to be able to taste the freshness of the vegetables, because if not, I would be cooking with a frozen vegetable. So all I did was just sprinkle maybe a pinch of seasonal right over the top of it. But other than that, I really just want to kind of have it bare bones and basic. You really want to be able to taste the vegetables. Alright, we have finished cooking up our vegetables. What I did was I went ahead and pulled out the vegetables, because I'm going to put my shrimp into the cast iron, and I'm going to start forming my sauce based upon that. And remember, shrimp actually cooks really fast. If you overcook it, it becomes really hard and rubbery. So we're just going to take a little butter, throw it in the pan. We're going to let it melt down, kind of spread it all around. And now I did season my shrimp with a little bit of Prud'homme's Seafood Magic. I'm going to just kind of let it sit on there. So my pan's nice and hot. I'm going to go ahead and drop my shrimp in. You're going to let them stay on this first side until you can start to see them go from kind of clear to start becoming more opaque. And you can actually start, kind of like when you're cooking fish, you can actually see the shrimp start to cook. If you kind of look at it from the side, you start to see it cooking through. Go ahead and give them a little flip. Now I've got the pan on as high as the stove will set it, which is actually, this is the burner made for oversized pots, so I've got a pretty high intense flame on right now. Part of the reason I'm doing that is I want to take the butter that I just put in the pan and I kind of want to almost kind of burn it to the cast iron a little bit, and some of that seasoning from the shrimp, it'll kind of stick to the pan. And I'm only going to let this sit on this side for probably a minute or so, and then I'm going to come behind with my white wine. In this instance I have Pinot Grigio. Old thought process behind wine is don't cook with anything you wouldn't drink. So just a little cheap bottle of Sutter Home Pinot Grigio. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to pour it in. We're going to start cooking off alcohol, and we're also going to kind of use it to deglaze the pan as well. You should see the wine start to go to almost a light brown color. That's mostly just from the seasoning on the shrimp. And once we let that cook for about 20-30 seconds, most of the alcohol should cook off at this temperature. We're going to go ahead and put our butter in. We're going to start to mix that in. And after that all kind of starts to blend and marry down, just kind of scraping as I go. Finding all those little hidden spots of flavor. Just kind of scraping. It's cast iron, it's pretty forgiving. You can always re-season it if you do some damage to the seasoning layer. And if you're cooking this dish for somebody you love, make sure you devein them. They will appreciate the deveined shrimp as a point of preference. Alright. So now I'm going to come back and get some of these vegetables. Now I cooked more vegetables than I need for this dish, but that's just because I wanted some extra to be able to use as a side for something else that I'm going to cook, and maybe I'll do another video on different ways to kind of use up some of your leftovers. I'm just going to make sure we get a nice blend of everything. Make sure we get some of that zucchini and that squash, the carrots, the green beans. I'm going to make sure you have a nice little mixture of everything. Some of y'all are probably looking at the pan going, there's nothing light about this meal to begin with, because it was quite full. And so that's probably about half of all my ingredients. I'm going to go ahead and let those cool down on the side, and then we're just going to come back Mix it up. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat down. We're just going to kind of mix it up a little bit. And most of the butter and the wine have evaporated out or been absorbed in at this point. So, because it is a pasta, you don't want to just put dry vegetables essentially on top. Come back, probably about another 2 tablespoons of butter. Probably about 4 tablespoons of wine. And measure it out to your taste. Some people like a heavier wine taste. Like I said, I wanted this to really not affect the flavor of the vegetables. That's been my goal all along. And that's going to be just about it. Go ahead and take your flame off. And look how pretty that is. Well, let's go ahead and get it over to the other side, and we're going to go ahead and plate it and finish up. Alright, let's plate up. Got my pasta on my plate already. Just going to make sure I get a nice little helping of everything. Try not to make a mess of this, because we're going to try and make this look really pretty. Get a couple of shrimp. Some carrots. Since these shrimp aren't wanting to cooperate, I'll just kind of go like that. What I did is I went ahead and I whipped up some extra sauce in the cast iron pan after. Just give it a little drizzle. Give it a little garnish. And just a little pinch of Parmesan cheese right on top. And there you have it. Enjoy.